Hello, and welcome to the Catching the Octopus podcast. Here, we will explore how connecting inward gives us an advantage outward. We openly talk about the obstacles and challenges and difficulties that life throws our way and how they become moments of gratitude and things that can benefit us when we look back on our lives. I'm your host, Niomi Hurley, and it is my mission to bring you top quality guests that will share with you openly their obstacles and also the techniques they use to go inward that strengthens the way that they serve themselves and others at the highest level. Thank you for joining. Let's get started. Welcome to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. Today, I'm going to speak about the interview that I had with Ben Yew and all of the gold nuggets that I took from it, and hopefully going to share them with you and so you can get some value too. He talked about passion and adapting and resilience and coming from a place where he was a destination photographer to now becoming more of that visual storyteller. Now, he still did tell stories visually when he was doing that, but he's working in a space now where he's actually now going more with flow. Now, Ben is a storyteller verbally as well as visually, and he told us some great stories about how in his life he would want to do something in particular and something would be holding him back. But then later on, he would go with the flow. So he gave the example of some destinations that he wanted to visit from a movie he'd watched and didn't think he'd get the opportunity. But then he was actually with a client that he was meeting in those very same places. So he talked about, going into that flow space and allowing things to happen around you and being a part of that rather than resisting it. Going through a personal health crisis like he did. And although we didn't go into great detail around that, he did talk about how that builds resilience. And we're in a space, I do one-to-one therapies with people. So I'm in a space where I just want to help everyone. Okay. I know I've got the skills and the talents to rid people of suffering. And it's a really beautiful gift to have, but it's a little bit of a curse as well, right? Because sometimes we need to go through the suffering to be able to find the benefits for ourselves, to be able to do that inner growth that we need to do that, I suppose, inner capacity building so that we can face what life has for us next. So he talked about how he actually utilized that to create some momentum for him and adapting and shifting to the world around him so that he was always in that flow state. So he could always give those stories and tell those stories the way he needed to visually. When we were talking with Ben, we were talking about how you can create something and build rapport with people. How sometimes you need to just take the steps and the action. One of the stories Ben tells was about doing some photography around some scaffolding. And in the moment, just in that moment right there and then, he spoke about saying to his potential client, this would be great for some photography. And he was scaling fences and getting in there and just doing it and just seizing that moment. And often in life, we tend to come to a place where we're not seizing opportunities. If we're not in a flow state, we could be in resistance, right? We could be not opening the doors that are presenting themselves in front of us because we're too busy worried about all the other things that are distracting our view. So it's really important as leaders to be able to come into a place where we're actually going from that flow state. And as a leader, there are going to be times where we're challenged. There's going to be times where people or procedures or processes haven't gone the way that they should. They haven't gone as planned. Now, if we keep ourselves stuck in the it should haves instead of it is's, then we're going to hold ourselves back from being able to adapt to those situations and build resilience for the next time we're in that space. And our team members look up to us, whether you're a parent or a manager or supervisor or a coach, whatever you are, the people around you are looking to you for that guidance. And somewhere, even subconsciously, they're picking up on that. They're learning from that. And that will be their go-to when they're faced with similar challenges.
If you're enjoying this podcast and you want Niomi or any of her guests featured on your podcast or as a keynote speaker at your next event, you'll find their contact details included in the show notes. If you'd like to learn more about how you can work with Niomi individually or as part of your strategy to improve leadership in your business, then review the courses, offers and services at getupandgroconsulting.com.au.
So when we're facing things and coming from that flow state and acceptance around what's happening with us, and we remove the resistance that's stopping us and just holding us back, then we can actually come from a place of more creativity. We have, from a psychological perspective, we have more cognitive ability because there's only so much cognitive space our brain can take up, right? So while we're thinking and worrying and being concerned about particular things in our minds, that's actually using that resource and not allowing that resource to be freed up for the really great things that we could be thinking about. The planning, the adapting, the contingencies, the modeling, the inspiring, the mentoring, all of those aspects that could get us through that issue or that obstacle or whatever we're facing in that point of time are going to weigh down on our cognitive ability and stop us from being able to see through them. So I love talking with Ben, and I loved how he came up with all these amazing stories that showcased how this has worked for him in his life and how now he's continually doing that. If you may not have seen any of Ben's photography, but if you have, you will actually see the story within there. It's not something that he just says. I've been part of a photo shoot with him, and he just gets people to actually have their inner selves show. Right? He gets them to relax, be in a place of either fun, if that's what they're looking for, or professionalism, but with a sense of reality there, with an ability to connect with what he's producing. And when he's in that space, it's easy for him to take magnificent shots, not only for himself, but also for the people that he's with, right? The people that he's actually taking the photos of. And there's, even if you're not huge on vanity, it's really great when you actually get to look at a photo of yourself and you can see something you like about it. Because often as humans, we have, and many people do, have an adversity of seeing ourselves in different positions and different views and, oh, that's a bad photo, delete it. But having the photo there and how you show through it when it's something that you're happy with and when your energy is in a positive space, then you're going to use it more, right? Now, I just want to tell you one more quick story, and it is photo related, but it's more about that acceptance of ourselves in photos. So I was speaking with a gentleman probably a couple of months ago now that unfortunately lost his wife to a terminal illness. And we were having discussions about that. And, it just came up about what's the one thing that you regret doing or not doing, in that space. I'm a curious cat, right? I ask these weird questions. And he actually said to me that one of the things that his biggest regret was not having more photos taken. So he was one of those people that didn't like his photo taken or would always shy away or would not be in the photos. And when his wife passed and he went and looked through their photos and their belongings and what they had, he didn't have those memories. He didn't have those photos of him and his partner. So resisting that space later on then presented him with another bigger obstacle than he would have had. And he said that's his biggest regret, is that he just didn't allow the photos, bad hair day photos, whatever they are, really they're translated into memories. And when we're coming into life in that space of flow and of acceptance, we can build that resilience and we can have some really great memories. We can reflect on life and see things as opportunities rather than seeing them as huge obstacles that have held us back. But check out Ben's interview if you haven't already seen it, and go through and see what comes up for you. You know, I've pulled out some nuggets that I found, but there might be little things in there that really connect with you. And worst case scenario, he's a great storyteller. So he's got some really interesting stories to tell. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for joining in and listening to this episode of Catching the Octopus podcast. It's been great having you here. And if you'd like to go and like and subscribe and maybe even leave a 5-star rating if you think it's worth it, I'd really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.